Equalizer 3, I liked. I still think the first one is probably the best of the series.
I forgot about that movie. That needs to be on my list too because I really loved it.
Yeah, Denzel Washington's always fun to watch, and that's the Equalizer series is as close as I'm getting lately to a Punisher cinematic universe that I'm not getting from Marvel. So, yeah, I'll take what I can get.
It's probably why Andre likes Equalizer, because it's probably the closest thing to an actual Punisher we got right now.
Yeah. Well, Reacher, the Reacher series.
Well, yeah, I haven't seen
great,
that. So yeah.
But yeah,
as far as season is really good. It's better than the first season.
Oh yeah, no, the second season so far is amazing. It's great. It's like we're not being knocked over the head with a message and just having fun characters and fun writing. Imagine that. Anyway,
and they had a callback character this week. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. I won't spoil it for anybody.
Yeah, I don't want to either. But I liked it.
Not taking the Punisher and doing something with him by Marvel is one of the greatest sins in my mind ever. But anyway, that's just me.
Funny you mentioned that. For the first time, I just saw season 1 of Punisher. Last
I never
week.
watched it.
Yeah.
Oh,
what'd you think, Mikey?
My God. Wow.
Is that a good or a bad? Oh my God, because
I loved it.
Because look,
I like Barenthal. Mikey, no.
Look, Barenthal's good as the Punisher. The problem with it is the way they set up the bad guys, and it's like that's not Punisher bad guys. What are you doing?
No,
that was my problem.
I got a very brief rant. The main thrust problem with Punisher, at least season 1, and the problem with the Punisher rendition of the character in Marvel in the Netflix MCU is the origin story.
Punisher, they did it wrong.
Well, they got it absolutely wrong and totally destroys the character. Punisher and his family being shot up by the gangsters in Central Park had nothing to do with anything the Punisher did. They were
Frank soldiers and cops bad guys.
Yeah, Frank Castle was, as much as his family, an innocent victim of crime. He was the everyman of the crime victim, except that he had the ability to actually fight back. That was the whole thrust of the character. In this, even if it's separated by 2 steps, what happened to his family is a direct result of his own actions and choices. And that fundamentally, I mean, there's a lot of problems with season 1, but that fundamentally about the character they set up in Daredevil season 2 and forward into that, that really hampered the character as far as I'm concerned. Then he had the whole microchip thing and trying to do a 2-part, like half of season 1 of the Punisher was at the the NSA or the FBI or whatever. It didn't have anything to do with the Punisher. He just should have been out there going after bad guys instead he's sitting in a basement with not microchip complaining about his family being dead, which I could go on.
I could not agree with you more. I mean, because basically they did all of the mistakes of the 2004 movie all over again.
Yep.
Because the problem with that movie was, again, the origin story. Because when you are quite right, and I've been saying this for years, that the key to understanding the Punisher is what you said right there. He was a completely innocent bystander when his family was killed in Central Park.
Exactly.
If it wasn't him, it would have been someone else. And if it wasn't those particular shooters, it would have been some other shooters. Because what happened? It was a mafia shootout. Innocents got caught in the middle, and he happened to be among them. That idiot, Jonathan Hensley, who did the 2004 movie, he didn't understand this. So basically, he replaced the Punisher's origin for a Mad Max reference. And also, he made it so that he was the cause of it, because he was a G-man. He was the one who set up the failed sting. That got the John Travolta crime boss's son killed, and so John Travolta targeted him. That was his fault. He did it. You had the exact same thing here. He has no justification to go after all criminals at all. And you see this best in the 2004 movie, where he's about to basically end himself when he has gotten his revenge. Not punishment, but revenge, no matter what he says. And now he has nothing else to live for when he just randomly, and this is the most idiotic piece of character development I have ever seen, where he just randomly, out of the blue, decides, I'm going to now spend the rest of my life killing criminals. Why?
Yeah.
This is not set up in any way, shape, or form. And you have the same problem then in the Netflix series. And what is so frustrating is that it was a problem that was introduced in season 1. the best Netflix Punisher is actually the one that appeared in Daredevil season 2.
My only complaint about Daredevil season 2 and the Punisher is, aside from him crying all the time over his family, which Castle rarely ever does,
Again,
was
this
the
is
whole
something that Thomas Jane won. That's the irony. The Thomas Jane, or the Punisher that John Berthel portrayed, is the one that Tom Jane wanted to portray.
Well, I gotta at least give credit to Thomas Jane, because as a super fan, the short film Dirty Laundry is the best Punisher film ever created.
I could not disagree with you more. That is
really
horrible. Yes,
really.
Let me explain
It
why.
seemed lifted to me right out of the Punisher comic book.
Nope.
Honestly,
Let me explain to you
Okay.
why it isn't. That thing is a travesty, and it goes to show that Tom Jane may call himself a fan, but he also doesn't understand the character. Because for those that haven't seen it, the short film Dirty Laundry is basically the Punisher. He takes his clothes to the laundry to wash out the blood stains and stuff, and meanwhile he witnesses a pimp that is beating up his ladies, let's say, because they haven't earned enough or whatever. And eventually he has enough, and he goes out and he beats up the pimp for them. And then, and this is the true character assassination moment, he sets the stage where a woman who has been beaten and bruised by the pimp, he puts this pimp's life in her hands. She gets to choose if this pimp lives or dies. And she chooses that he dies. And in so doing, the Punisher made someone else the judge of who lives and who dies. This is a beaten and broken woman who is probably emotional right now. She's not fit to make logical decisions, and he just made her a murderer. Maybe she's going to regret that. A week down the line, maybe the police are going to have questions for her. Maybe at some point she finds religion, gets out of that point of life, and then she knows, I have sinned, I have killed someone.
They forgot their Clint Eastwood on her.
The Punisher doesn't make others do what he does. He does it so no one else has to.
Okay.
That thing is a complete travesty for that reason.
And Andre, they forgot their classic Clint Eastwood, which is, it's a hell of a thing to take a man's life.
Exactly. It's a hell of a thing. And he just made a beaten, broken prostitute who is not fit to make decisions, and he made her a murderer. What the Punisher really should have done, he should have made that decision for her. Should have blasted her, blasted that guy's brains out, and then said, get yourself cleaned up and move on to do a better life. Then she would have. Instead, he ruined her life by doing that. Worse than the pimp ever did.
All right. I concede to your analysis. You're right. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
But no, I was going to say, going back slightly, my major complaint about season 2 of Daredevil was the whole bullet in the head theory driving Frank Castle to do what he does. That gives him a moral escape.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I hated the moral escape they gave the Punisher. The whole thing about him is that he's methodical and he's cunning, but he's not nuts. He's not out of his mind in that way. He's got emotional problems, but he's completely reasoned and calculated. So to say that, oh, well, the bullet in his head's doing that, I hated that setup and everything else. But anyway, I could go on about. I did 2 giant.
We do have
reviews.
another guest joining us. Yeah,
the closest.
I have a dumb question for you, Punisher fanatics. Do you think it's never done right because no one had the balls to do it right the way you guys are talking about this character?
I think the major problem. This is just off the top of my head. I think one of the major problems is trying to make the character likable to the audience and not make him look like a complete monster. But the problem is the psychology of the Punisher is nuanced enough that trying to get that across on film rather than a narration like in the text boxes on a comic book, it becomes difficult. I'm not quite sure why writers do that. To me, if you have him be, and they haven't, the Ray Stevenson version might be the exception because they don't.
That's the one I was going to say is as many problems I have with that film, Scribe. Yeah, it's my favorite Punisher film.
It's the closest that they've come to rendering the character I think they should have. The
Warzone.
Yeah, Punisher Warzone.
That's my favorite too.
Warzone?
Yeah.
The Lundgren one's actually probably my favorite, but again, that one suffers from the same problems as the other ones.
Sentimental favorite. But yeah, no, if they made the character someone who was an innocent victim, and they really, but part of the love I have with the Punisher is, as we're talking about, if you have the Punisher be an innocent victim of crime, the audience can project themselves into his mindset without having to have the baggage of everything else.
I can't remember who said it in the chat earlier, but I highlighted it. But yeah, Punisher, from my understanding from listening to you two talk, is that he basically should be Paul Kersey meets Rambo.
Yeah, and Charles Bronson is my favorite Punisher.
Yeah,
he pretty much is. I mean,
and then you have the Equalizer,
the
which
Punisher at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's why the Equalizer is basically the Punisher for me, is until they come up with something better.
And I'm sure, Andre, you've seen the Death Wish films, right?
Yeah,
or at least one or two of them.
Yeah. I mean, the Punisher came out of that era, and for similar reasons. I also would love to see the Punisher done right. I don't think that we can get the Punisher done right in this day.
I think they're afraid to do it, Andre.
Absolutely, because now in the current woke age and stuff like that, it can't be done because of the politics of it all. The closest that we have, it's actually Punisher Warzone. That is the one movie that got the character of the Punisher right in every detail. Yep. Unfortunately, that movie is hamstrung by the villains.
Yes.
Because you have Jigsaw and you have his idiot brother, and the two of them, they ham up the movie and they chew the scenery so bad that the two of them make the movie unwatchable. So if you disregard those two, it's the best Punisher movie ever, and it's the only Punisher iteration in live action ever to get his origin story correctly.
And to get Microchip right. Also to get Microchip right, because
he's fantastic. Yeah, Microchip's amazing there.
Well, the mistake they made with the villains was they hammed it up, and the whoever the actors were again kind of thought, oh, I'm a comic book villain. So there was this classic idea, and Tommy Lee Jones did the same damn thing in Batman Forever.
Yep.
Where there was these actors who do not understand what comic books were, never really liked them or whatever. So when they see comic book or think comic book villain, they think Saturday morning cartoon villain.
No, I blame the director.
There's a big difference.
Totally blame the director.
Yeah. I also blame Lexi Alexander.
Oh yeah. It's up to them.
And
it's up to them. Yeah.
Looney Bin Jim, like, you don't need to add a character out of a brother for Jigsaw. Like, anyway, again, I gotta stop myself.
I scribe light. I have to ask you: were you by any chance? Like, I'm surprised at how much you know of this. Were you ever in the Global Punisher Army by chance?
I was not. I was a wild agent of Marvel, however. I have an extensive collection of the comic books. I got the Armory issues, the original Armory issues of the Punisher back when they were coming out when I was a kid. So no, I wasn't a part of the Punisher Army, unfortunately.
No, because I was like an online community. No, because I was there. So I was just pre-midnight section.
Oh yeah, no, my online club stuff didn't really start until much later on in life.
Does anybody else think that Dominic West played Jigsaw like he was playing the Joker?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, Dominic West is such a good actor. You ever seen The Wire? If they'd given him a Joker, sort of Joaquin Phoenix Joker version of Jigsaw to play, he could have done it. He just needed good direction and writing, but they gave him garbage.
He didn't have it.
No.
And that's what I was talking about, is that Saturday morning cartoon kind of thing.
Too broad.
And part of that is because it was like, just as they were about to start shooting, it was like another like the Caltech shooting or some mass shooting in some university or something, was just as they started shooting the movie. So they were like extra gun shy because of that. That's kind of like the issue with the character.
I am so tired of that crap. Honestly, if Hollywood should be more like George Romero. And I don't know if you guys know this story or not, but George Romero was in the midst of putting the final edit together for Night of the Living Dead when Martin Luther King was killed.
Oh,
and
okay.
He was in the car with the actor. God, the name just escapes me, but the black main cast actor.
Yes.
And on the way to do some ADR with him for the edit, when they heard the news on the radio, and they pulled over, and there was a moment where they all kind of thought, well, what should we do now? Should we change this ending?
Right.
What do we do? And finally, George goes, fuck it. We're going to do it. We're going through with it. And at that moment, it was just like, fuck it. We're just going to do it because it's already that way anyway. And not only that, it says more now because of this, right? Like, and that did, when that movie came out, it had that profound impact, mainly probably because of that. you have a black actor in the main starring role, and then, you know, his senseless ending was very, you know, kind of in the
after
news,
being
in the
the hero,
headlines.
after being the savior of everybody. Yeah.
So they're just like, fuck it, we're just going to own it, you know, at that point. And I mean, sometimes, I mean, I'm not saying, you know, capitalize on a tragedy, but, you know, sometimes like, it's like, look, you just happen to be making something that speaks to the world right now. Maybe that was divine intervention. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things. Sometimes you're just like, fuck it, let's go with it.
This clip was taken from Midnight's Edge in the Morning, which streams live every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 9 AM Pacific Time on the Midnight's Edge main channel. There you can send in your live questions and comments before clips and full stream replays are uploaded to Midnight's Edge live archives. We are also on Twitter, Rumble, Odyssey and Facebook, so smash that like, help share, subscribe and join us.